Recently, fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe have had a whole lot to gush over thanks to the release of exclusive photos of the Captain Marvel film via Entertainment Weekly. We also got some exclusive details about what to expect from the movie, including a shot of Carol Danvers working as part of an elite military team called the Starforce on the Kree Planet of Hala. According to the directors of the film, Boden and Ryan Fleck, Starforce is kind of like the SEAL Team 6 of space. It was also revealed that the Captain Marvel movie, which takes place during the 90s, begins with Carol already having her powers, and already on Hala with the Starforce. We also found out that Jude Law, who plays MAR-VELL, is the commander of Starforce, and acts as Carol's mentee. But what about the rest of the team? There's some unfamiliar faces in that photo. What do we already know about Starforce? Well, for starters, the Starforce is a team that exists in the comics. Traditionally, it's a supervillain team made up of Kree members, who initially appeared in Avengers issue 346 back in 1992 as part of the Operation Galactic Storm story arc. Now, the team was brought together by the Supreme Intelligence, who is an artificial intelligence that rules over the Kree. Who the hell is that, you may be wondering? Well, also known as the Supremor, the Supreme Intelligence was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby back in 1967. Fictionally, it was created over 1 million years ago in the city of Kree on the planet of Hala, by the Kree as a means of creating a cosmic cube, similar to the one that their enemies, the Skrulls, had crafted to use against them. It is literally made up of brains, those brains being the greatest Kree minds, meaning philosophers, scientists, generals, you name it. When one of these thinkers dies, they would be assimilated by the computer, who would add their knowledge and experience to its mind bank. Anywho, back in the day, the Supreme Intelligence was tight with Ronan the Accuser, who had sent out on a mission to kill the Fantastic Four, which was the series that it first appeared in. Eventually, Ronan's true colors became apparent to it, and instead it turned to MAR-VELL, and honored him with a new uniform. Now, at the time, MAR-VELL was still a hero as far as the Kree were concerned. Jumping back to Starforce now, the original team in the comics consisted of Captain Atlas, Dr. Minerva, Ronan the Accuser, Supremor, Ultimus, KORATH the Pursuer, Shatterax, and Deathbird, the latter who joined later on. As you can tell, most of those individuals aren't the biggest characters in the Marvel Universe. Side note though, Ultimus recently became the antagonist in a game called Marvel Strike Force earlier this year, so good on him. But what about the team that's in the Captain Marvel film? Well, it varies quite a bit. Aside from Carol and KORATH, the other individuals making up the team have yet to debut in the MCU. They are Minerva, ATT-LASS, and BRON-CHAR. MAR-VELL is the commander. So let's start with him. Now, according to an interview with Jude Law, MAR-VELL sees Carol as a pet project. Also worth noting that he hasn't officially been announced as MAR-VELL, but everyone is speculating him to be so, at least at the time of this recording. Now I quote, "These extraordinary powers she has, he sees them as something of a blessing and something that she has to learn how to control. That's the motif throughout the piece, the element of learning to control one's emotions and to use your powers wisely." Now, if you're familiar with his role in the comics, you're probably questioning whether or not MAR-VELL will have a similar impact on Earth as he did in the panels. Now, we mentioned earlier when discussing the Supreme Intelligence, MAR-VELL was once an honored hero in the eyes of the Kree, but he falls from their graces. In the 1960s, when Marvel first got the rights to use the name Captain Marvel, they introduced a character named Captain Mar-VELL, who was sent to Earth by his race, the Kree, to spy on humanity and decide whether or not they were a threat to the Empire. In the comics, this is where he encounters Carol Danvers, a pilot for the military who ends up working with him and his human persona. Because he adopts the identity of a deceased scientist named Walter Lawson, he ends up growing an admiration for humanity when he's immersed in it, which eventually results in the Kree Empire accusing him of treason. He's sentenced to death by a firing squad, but escapes and returns to Earth. Later on, in an explosion, his DNA ends up melding with Carol's, which is how she got her powers. The name Captain Marvel comes from how humans interpreted his name MAR-VELL. Now, many people are wondering whether any of his origin story will come into play with how Carol got her powers initially, and if his fall from grace will be a catalyst on why Carol eventually stops working with the Starforce, choosing to align with her mentor. In the comics, MAR-VELL eventually gets cancer and dies, and later on down the road, Carol ditches her Miss Marvel alias, adopting Captain Marvel's instead. Perhaps similar events will also occur in the film. Moving on to ATT-LASS. ATT-LASS, who is known by his alias Captain Atlas, is one of the original members of the Starforce from the comics. He's part of the Kree race and from the city of Kree. During Operation Galactic Storm, ATT-LASS would discover that the war between the Kree and the Shi'ar, which was the premise of the story arc, was instigated by the Supreme Intelligence as a means of jumpstarting the evolution of the Kree. This hit him pretty hard, disillusioning him, leading to him committing suicide by activating the self-destruct program in his battlesuit. But it has been speculated by readers that instead of it being a self-destruct program, it actually was a teleportation device, because later on the character would join a team of supervillains in the 2013-2014 Infinity Heist comics, taking on the name Titanium Man. He would then be vaporized, dying for good in Infinity Heist issue 4 of March 2014. While we most likely won't see his Titanium Man ways, it could be plausible that he dies in a similar fashion. And the reason why Carol ends up working solo, and dons her Captain Marvel suit, is because the other members of her team died. Or at least everyone who isn't KORATH. Moving on, let's talk about Minerva now. Minerva, played by Gemma Chan, is also a Kree, and is most commonly known in the comics as Dr. Minerva. She's a gifted geneticist with superhuman strength and durability, the ability to fly, has enhanced intuition, and knows how to pilot various Kree starships. Now initially she was the enemy of MAR-VELL, first appearing in Captain Marvel issue 50 in 1977. She first came to Earth seeking him out, with the intention of mating with him and using his altered genes to progress the Kree race. Betcha that won't be in the movie. Anywho, she eventually became partners with Captain Atlas, and after the Starforce she would return to Earth during Civil War II, and took on Carol Danvers in a fight, later being arrested and imprisoned by the Kree. Up next we've got BRON-CHAR. BRON-CHAR is an even lesser known character in the comics. First appearing in 1998's Captain America issue 8 volume 3, BRON-CHAR is a soldier for the Kree Empire, and a member of the Kree Lunatic Legion. He was a part of the Kree invasion on Earth and had broken Captain America's shield, but it was later revealed that the shield was just a replica from the Smithsonian Institute. BRON-CHAR is the character who will likely be the most different from his comic counterpart, mainly because there isn't actually that much to run with. He's the bearded Kree fellow that appears in the group photo. And last but not least, we have KORATH the Pursuer. Since the film takes place in the 90s, we now get to see KORATH alive and well, and on the side of good. In the comics, KORATH is a Kree cybergeneticist, and founded a project to develop cybernetic warriors for the Kree military. He himself is part cyborg, and fun fact, according to the concept art for Guardians Volume 1, he was actually meant to have blue skin, but that idea was later abandoned. Now according to the MCU Guardians Prelude comics, KORATH spent his earlier years in the MCU training alongside Gamora and Nebula. Whether or not that will remain canon and somehow tie into how KORATH ended up in the Starforce is yet to be explored, but perhaps the connection through Thanos is what ends up aligning him with Ronan once again. Speaking of returning characters, it was no secret that Ronan also appeared in these exclusive photos. Fans of the MCU were aware that both he and KORATH would be returning. The two had both been killed off in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. Now Ronan isn't part of the team, but rather he's an ally, and dons a version of his costume that aligns with the same colors as the Starforces. As we can see from the EW photos, Ronan is a friend of the Starforce, and is a high-ranking member of Kree society. In Guardians Volume 1, he was an outcast with extremist views, so perhaps Captain Marvel will depict the early makings of Ronan's separation from the Kree Empire. If you recall from the Guardians film, Ronan was disgusted by the peace treaty made between the Kree Empire and Xandar after the Kree-Nova War, and had forged an alliance with Thanos in an attempt to wipe out all of the Xandarians. Now in addition to all of this, there was a scene description leaked that teased a Starforce mission on the planet of Torfa, which in the comics is a poisonous planet that refugees from the war against the Builders in the 2013 Infinity Story event go to. Turns out Torfa wasn't actually poisonous after all. Rather, it was because of intense pollution thanks to the extraction of vibranium. The planet was introduced in a 2014 issue of Captain Marvel. Now according to the scene description, the planet, which has blue streaked sand and huge stone archways, the Starforce are searching for a missing spy there, traversing through a fog-heavy area. Their comms are down and Jude Law's character gives the team the go-ahead, and Danvers springs into action, itching for a fight. So, nothing too revealing, but it's cool to know that we'll get to see all these characters in action together at least once. So, what does all of this mean for the Captain Marvel movie? Well, despite being in space and running around with the Starforce, we know that something draws her back to Earth. Likely the Skrulls, who we know will be the primary antagonists in the movie. Ben Mendelsohn plays Talos, the leader spearheading a Skrull invasion of Earth. The Kree have a long-time grudge against the Skrulls. The film is set to explore the war between them, and this invasion of Earth, which sounds like it's taking cues from the Secret Invasion comic story event, is most likely the reason why Carol ends up on her home planet again. But more on that in a sec. What else did these photos reveal? We got to see a de-aged Nick Fury. He's a desk jockey working at S.H.I.E.L.D. before he's climbed the ranks. We can only speculate that his meeting with Carol will be pretty career advancing for him, that's for sure. And considering he's been carrying around a space beeper to get a hold of her, even though, 20 plus years have passed, it's gotta mean that their interaction must be meaningful. Plus, his eye patch isn't there. There's been a lot of speculation that we'll see how exactly his eye gets wounded in this film. We also got to see a photo of Brie Larson, who plays Captain Marvel, sitting inside of a fighter jet. Or rather, poking out of a fighter jet. We know that the film will be sticking to her origin of being an accomplished Air Force pilot prior to her gaining her powers. In the interview published by EW, Brie Larson also revealed more about how her Danvers will be characterized in the film. I quote, "She can't help but be herself. She can be aggressive, and she can have a temper, and she can be a little invasive and in your face. She's also quick to jump to things, which makes her amazing in battle because she's always the first one out there and doesn't always wait for orders. But the not waiting for orders is, to some, a character flaw. We'll take a guess and suggest that this is probably something that causes a bit of conflict between her and her mentor MAR-VELL from time to time." Lastly, a photo of Monica Rambeau, one of Carol's oldest friends and fellow pilots, was revealed, and perhaps the most interesting fact about it was her call sign printed on the side of her plane. It's Photon. Now in the comics, Monica Monica briefly became Captain Marvel, but eventually adopted the alias of Photon. In between MAR-VELL and Carol, there was a series of other characters who took up the Captain Marvel mantle, including ones that were actually related to MAR-VELL, hence why Monica gave it up and switched to Photon. She would fight alongside the Avengers on multiple occasions and even replaced Wasp as their leader in 1987 in Avengers issue 279. Now there's one last thing that we want to talk about concerning the reveals, and that's the planet of Hala, where the Starforce are based. Hala is located in Kree territory, and is also the place where the conflict between the Kree and the Skrulls originate. The Skrulls had initially come there looking for trade partners, and a contest between the two ensued. The Kree lost and tried to steal the Skrulls' technology, which was the catalyst for the conflict. Hala is also home to the capital city-state of Kree, which takes up most of the planet's surface. In the Operation Galactic Storm arc, Hala gets hit pretty hard by a negabomb that decimates 98% of the Kree population, devastating the planet, which was part of the Supreme Intelligence's plan. Whether or not the Supreme Intelligence will play a similar role is yet to be confirmed, but it would make sense as a catalyst to get the members of the Starforce to eventually split up, and have Ronan go on his way and cause Carol to adopt her own identity as Captain Marvel. Anywho, what do you guys think of all these reveals? Give us a shout in those comments below and let us know your thoughts. If you dug this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and be sure to check out the playlist we currently have floating on your screen right now for more great Captain Marvel and MCU videos. In the meantime though, thanks for watching everybody. I'll catch you all in the next one.